online.
Everybody in live on Facebook. Can you feel the excitement?
Am I still the host?
Yes.
It doesn't.
So-
I don't have.
Okay, so hover over Chris's name in the participants window,
Okay.
and you're going to see where there's a blue sign that says more.
Mhm.
Okay, click on that. Oh, there you go. You
Okay.
got it. Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
Okay, yep, and then, okay, good.
Okay, now I will close my camera, and Chris, if you want to, actually don't spotlight me. Oopsie. It's my camera, and Chris, if you want to,
It is?
come I don't see it?
We are so glad that you joined us. We're living on Facebook. We're live, and you should be able to see and hear us. We're going to start in just a couple of seconds with today's presentation. But want to thank you so much for joining us and being with us. So. Well, it is that time. It is 12 o'clock, and we are so excited that you have decided to be with us today as we talk about how we include everybody in through breaking bias. So, Kara, before we start, Tamara, before we start, would you like to introduce yourselves for those people who are joining us for the first time? I'll start. My name is Andre Koen, and I'm a program director in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and will be the guide for this particular session. Tamara?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara Pulliam. I am a sourcing specialist for diversity recruitment and glad to be joining you guys today.
Hi, my name is Kara Saliba. I am the Diversity and Inclusion Program Director in Arizona. So excited to be here today and learn what I didn't know I didn't know.
That's kind of a foreshadowing, isn't it? So before we get started, I do want to give you the assignment. So sometimes we run a little bit over on the back end, but I want to give you this assignment, and it is to download or look at the Jahari's window, and we'll go through that a little bit today, and then post why is humility important in breaking bias? Like, why would that be important in breaking bias? And Kara, if you could go over the ground rules for us, that would be helpful.
Sure. We ask that you be present. Fully present in the moment. This is good stuff. We don't want you to miss any of it. Let's assume a curious attitude and positive intent. Some of you may hear ideas that you've never heard before. So please understand that we're coming from a place of education, and for people who are brave enough to ask questions, we're glad you're here. we do need to speak for ourselves and not for others. We can't assume to know what's in other people's minds. And please come with an open mind and not a place of judgment. Please be respectful in your speech, and remember that people may share something with you in confidence. Please keep it that way. We're all here to learn, so it's okay. This is a safe place to make mistakes. This is the place to do that. And be respectful. Please don't interrupt. We're not going to use any negative or dismissive language that would interrupt the learning. And please remember to stay focused and keep your comments on topic. And we're going to get into some good stuff. So there may be some hot buttons for the people listening, for the people speaking. And be aware, recognize when you feel that coming up in you. That might be an opportunity to explore your own bias.
Great, thank you. So Tamara, can you do me a favor? Can you pull up in the Facebook some of the, because we posed this question in Facebook: when is it better to be a mirror than a window, right? And so if you could pull up a couple of those comments, and while she's doing that, Kara, when you think about the difference between this mirror and this window concept, particularly when we look at this meme, what comes up for you as you think about the difference between the window and the mirror?
Well, just like we went over in the ground rules, sometimes we have the best of intentions. Sometimes we mean one thing, we know how we feel on the inside, but when it comes out of our mouth, it sounds different to someone else. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, we have a good self-image, and it's hard to look in the mirror and see that we may not be the lion we thought we were, or that we may have a lot of learning to do to become who we want to be.
Yeah. That's a great point. Some of the comments is that the it that I saw was different from the it that others saw, but growing and learning now that I see both. You know, so the assumptions piece is also huge from some of the comments that we listed here. And I know we've got, looks like about 11 people that are active on the Facebook Live feed as well. So please feel free to you know, provide some comments live as we're going through this process. But those were some of the comments, and some people actually see it. Some people mentioned, hey, I need some help here to actually see it. So what we're all seeing could be different, but it looks like what we're learning from is what they actually saw may be different from what others see as well.
So what we see may be different from what others see. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to play a short video, if you will. It's about 2 to 3 minutes, and it's a part of a Dove campaign. And many of us are familiar with the Dove campaign, but I thought that as we talk about the concept of humility, we talk about how do we use Jahari's window, and we'll talk about Jahari's window in just a second. How do we use mirrors and how do we use windows, and why that's important, I think is encapsulated in this short video. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play.
I'm a forensic artist. Worked for the San Jose Police Department from 1995 to 2011.
I showed up to a place I'd never been, and there was a guy with a drafting board.
We couldn't see them, they couldn't see us.
Tell me about your hair.
I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
Your jaw.
My mom told me I had a big jaw.
What would be your most prominent feature?
I kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
I would say I have a pretty big forehead.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin, it was a nice, thin chin?
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
Cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So here we are. This is the sketch that you helped me create, and that's a sketch that somebody described of you.
So yeah, that's...
She looks closed off and sadder. Sadder, too. The second one looks more open, friendly, and happy.
I should be more grateful of my natural beauty. It impacts the choices and the friends that we make, the jobs we apply for, how we treat our children. It impacts everything. It couldn't be more critical to your happiness.
Do you think you're more beautiful than you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time as women analyzing and trying to fix the things that aren't quite right. And we should spend more time appreciating the things that we do like.
So, Tamara, Kara, thoughts? So when you watch that video and you think about the relationship between mirrors and windows, what came up for you as you're watching that video?
Wow, I am so guilty of that. It really made me pause and think about, when she talked about how you see yourself, and that can play a role in the things that you do in everyday life, the choices that you make. So yeah, that's what it really resonated with me, in a sense, just thinking about everyday life and just choices that are made.
Kara.
Andre, I thought about one of my favorite sayings: everybody we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. And sometimes when a person reacts in a way that we don't expect, or when we react in a way that somebody else doesn't expect, it's a reflection of what we have going on inside. And that maybe we could understand their reaction and the place they come from if we took time to get to know them better.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we think about this mirror versus this window, I don't think it's an either or thing. I think we need both, right? So I need to be reflective and responsive of the person that I see in the mirror every day, and be, there was when I was in 6th grade, there was a poem, Myself, by Edgar A. Guest, that we had to memorize. And it's funny that after all of these years, I still remember that poem, and I could recite it, but for the sake of time, I won't. Maybe we'll post that in the Facebook group. But I have to be able to look at that person, but I also have to be transparent enough to get feedback from people that actually helps lead me towards my goals. I think Kara talked earlier about our intentions and our behaviors, and sometimes they don't match, but part of our goal as human beings is to make those things match. And so when we think about Jahari's window, there's some pre-work that I want us to think about before we address the window itself. And one is to recognize that as human beings, we're constantly becoming, right? And that the thing that makes us unique in all the universe is our ability to think about our thinking, to use metacognition. Right? And so I would suggest that there probably aren't any boogeymen if we figure out how to think about our thinking, right? And that those things that we see that are problematic in ourselves, we can overcome those things by thinking about our thinking. And so that's important. Many of us have those Apple devices, and that iconic Apple symbol represents us as human beings, right? We are the ones who bite knowledge, we eat knowledge, we yearn for knowledge. But how do you get knowledge about your blind spots? How do you get knowledge about things that you don't know? And so it is less about, who we are and more about like what we do to attain that knowledge. And so there are three things that I think are important for us to recognize before we start to talk about the window as a tool for getting to know more about ourselves. The first is that all human beings are goal achievers. We use we're constantly trying to strive for certain goals, and we'll talk about what those goals are in another session later in the month. But let's just suffice it to say that we're all trying to achieve something, and our behaviors and our intent, or the impact of our behaviors and our intentions, sometimes are not aligned. Or sometimes they may be just a little bit off. I intended to do this, but the impact was that. So how do I align my intentions and impact? So impact simply is, in one way to recognize the difference between impact and intent, is that impact is how we measure a set of behaviors outside of relationship. So when I don't have a relationship with someone, I am measuring the impact of that behavior. When I do have a relationship with someone, typically we measure the intentions of those behaviors, right? So if you think about a macaroni sculpture, or an ugly tie or an ugly sweater that you may have received, and that was given to you by someone that you care about, you cherish the thought of that, even if the trinket wasn't worth very much, but you treasure the intention that the person put into creating or providing, giving that gift to you. Likewise, someone could offer you something of great value, but the way they gave it to you, here, take it, may not necessarily lend itself, because they're not trying to build a relationship. So we'll come back to that later. But ultimately, what we want to do is be responsible for our behavior, and our behavior should constantly be aligning itself to our goals, which is why our rich ties values are so important when we talk about how we interact with folks. How do we include people? We can really lean on those rich ties values, because that ultimately gets us to our goal, which is assuring that the needs of the patient come first. So let's talk a little bit about Jahari's window. So you see a diagram here. I'm going to go to another slide. And so there are 4 quadrants in Jahari's window, and I'll let you kind of read through what each of those quadrants are, but I'll just give you a short synopsis. There is the open area, which is what is known by me and known by others, right? So I am I'm a cisgendered male. That is, I'm African American. I'm 6 feet tall. I am mildly attractive and extremely humble. Right. So those are things that are in other. That was a joke. I was looking for at least a nod. So those are things that are known by me and known by others. So that's in the open area. And then there are things that are known, unknown by me, but known by others. I remember going on a date with someone, and she had spinach in her teeth. I cracked up. Long story short, we did not get married because there was something that was unknown to her, but was known to me. And because I didn't tell her about that, that doomed our relationship. And then in quadrant 3, there are things that I know about myself that other people don't know. And sometimes we can look at that as the imposter syndrome, right? Or folks recognize that I didn't give my best, but they thought I gave my best. So that's kind of where those things lie. And then there is quadrant 4, which we will call our blind spot. Remember that circle paradigm we made, and the big part of that pie was our blind spot? This is where that resides. So Andre, you're going through all this. Why is this important? Why do I need to know about Jahari's window? Well, this is where humility kind of comes in, right? So this is where humility comes in. And humility suggests that there are ways in which I can use this window to actually look at myself, right? And one way is by asking people about things about me that I that I don't know, right? Asking about my blind spots. And so it takes a humble person to be able to ask about their blind spot. It also takes a humble person to tell people about their story, about their shortcomings, right? So we have asking people about my blind spots and telling people things about my story that they might not know. But I can give you a third way of interacting that will that you'll be able to use Jahari's window to become better, efficient, effective, that your intentions and your behaviors can be closer aligned, and that is through shared discovery or building relationships. And so as we build relationships with people who we perceive to be different from us, they are more than willing to give us information that is helpful to helping us become more effective. Right? When we're in relationships with people who we perceive to be different from ourselves, we are more likely to share our stories so they better understand where we're coming from. And so when we think about Jahari's window, what I want you to think about is who can you ask that will give you helpful information about yourself? Now, I will say this, that I can find friends who will agree with my foolishness. Right? So if I want a particular answer, I know exactly who to go to get the answer that I want. But then there are other people that I go to that I'm like, oh, I don't know what they're going to say, but they're going to give me the honest truth, or at least their perception of the truth. They'll give me information that I can actually use to become more effective. At the same time, there are people that I can tell my story to that I know won't listen, who I know won't change their own behavior about how we're interacting. However, there are those folks in those times that I can invest and sit down and share some of my hopes and my fears and my dreams with, that they'll take those as things that they can use to become better individuals. And so when we think about these windows, and we think about these mirrors, and we think about Jahari's window, Tamara and Kara, as we think about those, what comes up for you, or how has using Jahari's window been helpful to you?
I think self-awareness, and it's made me a little more forgiving of myself, a little more open to learning, because these are qualities that we all share. And when we approach bias, we tend to come from a place of me, and there's no room for that in this. So it's been interesting to unpack my different tendencies and biases and see where they fall, and just give myself permission to be human and learn.
Permission to be human. That sounds like a workshop or a book. I'm going to copyright that. No, I'm just joking. Tamara.
Yeah, for me, it's been a journey of truth. A journey. I mean, it's a journey of truth. It's looking at where you are, and it's looking around you completely. So when you're on a journey, you're walking or you're driving, and you're learning and you're finding your way. You're seeing and discovering things along that journey and along that path. And so that's a lot of what it is for me. It's been a truth journey. It's been a journey as well. And sometimes, on that journey, you're going to take wrong turns. You're going to need to hit reverse and go back the other way. And you're going to need to also ask for direction, right? And so for me, that's what it's been.
So what about those individuals who say, look, I just wasn't taught about those people or about this situation or that situation. This isn't my fault. I mean, this is how I was raised. How do we use Jahari's window to encourage them to that again, it's not their fault. How do we encourage them using Jahari's window?
I say I get it. I'm right with you, but this is a time of action. This is about what we can do now, and it's a simple tool to see where you're at and move forward.
Yeah. How helpful, so sometimes, and I say your time is fleeting, but sometimes people get caught into this, these conversations around, are you saying I'm a bad person? Are you saying that, I'm, because I don't have or didn't grow up like or didn't interact with, are you suggesting I'm a bad person? What can Jahari's window provide those folks who have that? Or is it, I guess this is a better question, is it really even about being good or being bad people?
I showed this to an architect friend of mine, and he said it reminded him of a blueprint for rooms in a home. And he said, would you want to spend all your life stuck in the same room?
Wow.
So once we become aware of our blind spots, we need to move them into a different space in our house and keep moving things around until we're where we want to be.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. You said move it to where we want to be. So it's not even, so what you're suggesting is that it's not about being good or bad, but it's about being effective in our goal accomplishment, right? So if I'm reaching my goal, then it's not about good or bad. It is, am I being effective in what I'm trying to do? Which then means that we have to understand what is it that we're actually trying to do, right? So I don't know if you all got this question, but I did as a young person growing up. What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm grown, and I still can't answer that question. However, I think that a more pertinent question really is, what kind of person do you want to be? And I think when we move from, talking about what's wrong with people or that people have deficits and really start concentrating on their strengths and what people can do, we can really start to break that bias that for some of us we've been immersed in without any choice of our own, right? Without
so
any.
Andre,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tamara.
I'll say, and everything that we've learned today, the first word that it starts with is you.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with you. It's a decision, it's a choice, it's an action, but it starts with you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kara.
So to go back to your mirror image earlier, Andre, I had a friend who said, do you think I'm a bad person? And I said, do you think you're a bad person? And she said, no. And I said, well, don't we feel the happiest when our actions are in line with our intentions? So that's what we're talking about here today, bringing those two in line.
And so when we think about this concept of breaking bias, and we think about humility is not being a doormat, although doormats have a purpose, right? It really is about how do you humble yourself enough to take information that will make you more effective? How do you humble yourself to ask questions that allow you to be more effective? And so this is going to end our time today. I do want to say thank you so much. Unless, Tamara, were there any comments from Facebook that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of comments here. It says sometimes you have to also consider from where those directions are being shared and knowing another person's story as well. So that's a big part of it. It takes a humble person to ask about their blind spots and to tell someone something about their own personal story. So that was some of the comments that we see here. And also, oftentimes, we are often our own worst enemies.
Come on now, whoever that was, they should be doing these workshops. But our time is up, and I do want to say thank you for all those who who are joining us on Facebook and social media, recognize that you can also participate via the links from the website. So if you go to the Everybody In and go to the Grow, and there's a bunch of ways that you can connect with us there. We are so appreciative of your time. And as we continue to have these conversations, I love to see who you will become. So from all of us, from the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we are excited to work with you as we work to make sure that everybody gets in. And we're out of here. Thanks. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.